Welcome to the Peach Pit Fitness Podcast, part of the Think Fit, Be Fit podcast network, where we put the power of dynamic fitness back in your hands, one mental rep at a time. Effective thinking for potent fitness. Welcome to the Peach Pit.
Okay. Happy New Year, Peach Pit.
Happy New Year. Oh my goodness. Can you believe it? 2023.
Yeah. I love the just nice evenness of 2022, like just the number of it. And when you look at like the dates every day, there was like an element of luck in there, just looking at it. You're like, oh, look at the cool, like matching up numbers, synchronicity.
That's true.
So I don't know how I feel about
that. I think 2023 is going to have its little fun quirks too.
Yeah. And I got a new planner, so I'm so excited about that.
Nice.
I'm sure the podcast will benefit from this. So I'm glad you guys.
I love a new planner. Nothing starts the year off like better than feeling just like fresh and clean, even if it falls by the wayside come February.
Yeah. Well, you get another fresh start at your birthday, technically. So it's fine. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If you think about it, you know.
Yeah. It's a whole nother new year.
Yeah. Exactly. So sunny side up over here, people. Yeah. All right. Well, it's so good to be here with you. I'm just feeling great.
It's great to see you. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get into today's topic.
Yes. Back training. Yeah. So we've talked about other parts of the back, like the glutes before.
Posterior stuff.
The back of the body. But, like we said before, we hadn't ventured above the waist too much.
Not too much. No, we've been,
because if we were talking
lower half dominant.
Which was like so on theme for 2022. Like,
well, but the podcast is called Peach Pit.
Yeah.
So we had reason for focusing on peachy areas.
Yeah, we thought we were relating really well, but now we feel like it's a good time to expand and explore new areas. Yeah. So in that energy, exploring new areas, I thought I'd start with my own story about back training. So I used to hate it and now I love it. So I'll start with that. I used to not like it because I could feel fatigue for days afterwards.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
In different parts of my body. So if we're talking about, pretty wide timeline here for me, because I started exploring upper body exercises as a teenager, right? I was in the gym as a teenager, following Muscle and Fitness for, I had the magazine in my hand while I was at the gym. Like, how cute is that? and bold. There's your Aries energy right there. I'm a 16-year-old coming in with my magazine. I'm like, I don't care what I look like.
I'd love to see a picture.
So I wasn't a stranger to it, but also growing up as a soccer player, you don't get that much exposure to it. So, and I think many female athletes can probably agree, they just don't get much exposure to upper body training. And maybe that's where the fear starts. And I had fear. Well, and it's because I wasn't maybe properly educated and I wasn't doing things optimally. And then I would feel fatigue and I'd feel kind of crappy, which is not what we want from exercise. That's what I'm
not ideal. But you don't know that either when you're 16, right?
Yeah. You think it's supposed to hurt.
Yeah. No pain, no gain, man.
Yep. And so that changed for me not until I was in my mid 30s. And so learning MAT, I was relying a lot on my upper body for work. I just felt fatigued all the time. And there's probably other reasons for that. Your girl's got her gut health in check now, and we're not fatiguing as much. My brain's nice and happy and awake. And so, long story long.
It happens.
Yeah. I used another upper body exercise to get really comfortable with being appropriately uncomfortable.
Interesting. What other upper body exercise did you use?
Okay, this is the hot tea. No one else is going to say this, but
I'm so curious.
Dips were life-changing for me.
Oh, dips.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Totally changed my perspective.
From an output stand, from like a feeling, like an overcoming an obstacle type.
Yes.
Okay, not because you were necessarily strengthening your back doing dips, but because you just felt like it was a challenging thing to
challenging mentally.
Yeah.
You don't feel safe when you first start doing them. You're
true.
like, whoa, this is a lot of like a lot of strain.
Well, especially if you no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd already taken those biomechanics classes
Yes.
and I had all the ideas of what could go wrong. But I stuck through it. I had someone program for me who said, if this is what you want, like you need to work on strength for your upper body. And this is like the tempo I want you going. And so he had me going really slow on the eccentric. They were assisted with weight or a band.
Mm-hmm.
And I just fell in love with it.
That's so cool.
And it totally changed my strength. It totally changed my elbow strength, my wrist, my chest, the upper back. And I gained so much confidence from that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. So it's funny because when you started your story, you said, that back training was never your favorite, that you didn't like it. And I have had similar experiences where back and biceps have been my least favorite things to train often. My issue with training back a lot of the time was every time I would sit down and do some kind of cable row or machine row, even on a really good machine, I would always feel my right shoulder.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't, I would try to change things up. I would have MAT, address the situation, hopefully. And I just could never feel good about my right shoulder, that it felt like joint stuff was happening, not like I was actually working my back. Until I was like, I'm just going to do these one arm at a time. So now I generally, for a long time, I just did only a one arm row.
Yeah.
Whether it was with a cable or a dumbbell or a machine with one side at a time. And that never has bothered my right shoulder. And then sometimes I've brought it back together with both arms and it's better than it was before.
Interesting.
So it's so interesting how but having either a fear or just not feeling secure or it's just,
or a hardcore bias.
Well, and how much does that then it just feeds into it, so it becomes a whole thing. So you had a couple bad experiences or whatever, and now it's I hate training back. But that whole thing about knowing sort of the direction you're going in, but being flexible about the methods that you're using to get there. Because who would think that you doing dips consistently and responsibly over a course of time would even translate necessarily into you really enjoying training back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that was not what I thought you were going to say.
No.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
love
best.
that.
Yeah. And then when you said that, I also, I've done a lot of one arm row pull exercises now that I think about it. And so I think what we're trying to say is we're here for you guys. Gals.
Well, I think it's so interesting to share these stories because I think, it's so, there's always, I think most people have one thing at least that they're I just really don't love training that body part. Or I don't feel like I can connect to it, which I think also comes up a lot with back. People have a hard time really feeling their back. I get so many times all I feel is my arms or I feel my shoulder, and you can cue and it's so rewarding, or when you do start to actually feel the stuff that you want to be feeling, right? But it can be a process to get there.
Yeah, that is a rewarding thing. And it's a good thing to ask ourselves when we think about our strength training habits and routine. It's what is rewarding about this, And for me, confidence, just knowing that I'm waking up stronger just really makes me happy, And then it's also like knowing I can execute well. I'm like really proud of that skill, and it's really fun to explore within that. So maybe I'd, challenge a few of my clients and the audience to think about that. Like, what is it that is so, like, what do you find rewarding about this? And that's off the topic of back training, but
well, but it's part of training. Anything.
Yeah. And because like so many of our clients at this studio that I'm sitting in get a lot of reward in different ways, that when they learn about their body and they learn, how to move, and getting that reward of like, oh, I feel this in the right place. And then they're starting to transition into like working out more.
Yeah.
And that's the reward, so, and I think that's really relevant for back training.
So I think that's really important also to keep in mind that, like, I think so many times people think like, I'm going to the gym either to get stronger. So if I don't see the number moving up, then I might feel like I'm not accomplishing what I set out to accomplish, or I want to get leaner. So if I'm not seeing a change in my body fat percentage, then I feel disempowered because I'm not accomplishing the thing I like in the time frame that I thought I was going to accomplish it. And at a certain point, right, like we max out, like we might not be able to lift heavier. So then at that point, what does keep you going back? Like, what do you find that makes you feel good about what you're doing? And how can I, like something like back, it's like, how can I connect more to the things I want to feel? Is that in and of itself can be the goal. Not so much like, let me just add more weight to this and feel good about it because it's more than I did last week.
Yes, and exactly. So like one of the topics we, have on our, docket today is this, what back exercises look like in the day-to-day, like gym operations, like, what the gym staff might see every day for the last several decades.
Oh my God, can you imagine? And another person doing pull downs, great. Yeah. Another person doing pull-ups, awesome. Oh my
God. And what, so it's like, what I think, like, I wanted to call that the elephant in the room, which, which is the execution of an exercise, right?
Yeah.
And I also wanted to tie in part of the reward of back training for some people might be a certain look. And that gets pushed around on the internet so
when
much.
You say a certain look, do you mean like physically, like an aesthetic look, or do you mean like how it looks when you're actually doing the exercise?
Oh, the aesthetic.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, like the, what was the invisible or what is it?
The
IPL or ILS, invisible lat syndrome, when people like walk around with their arms out away from their body. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yes. So she's referring to like, I saw a TV show where the guy was doing it and it was so funny. It was on Apple, and it was this guy who had gone to prison, and he got stuck like working for the FBI, helping to like reveal another prisoner's like confession.
Okay.
And he was this like shorter Italian guy, and he was walking around like this the whole, like with his arms out.
Yeah, like it's like,
and his acting was superb. That's except awesome. For that thing was so distracting.
Okay. But do you think it was part of the character? Was it like
I think it had to be. I think I have to follow up and like,
that's so funny.
You'd have to like watch him walk on his Instagram or some stupid thing. So I don't know if I'll ever find out, but it definitely felt like it could have been part of the character, and he could have been showing up a certain persona.
Posturing. Yeah. Like
posturing.
Make himself seem bigger than he is.
He had to. It was pretty brutal.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you're talking like physically. Like,
I am speaking physically. So it's like, and that gets thrown around the internet a lot. Like, do this for the lat. look.
Yes, the taper, the V taper.
Mm-hmm. And then there's thicker parts of the muscle and thinner parts, and you can focus on them this and that way. And so you and I dug into that a little bit. And I think it's interesting. I don't think it's like worth like blowing over. But again, like there's this elephant in the room of execution.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's possible that certain exercises might bias certain fibers more than other fibers, and perhaps one would create more width and one would create more thickness.
Mm-hmm.
But right, also, there's also the way that people tend to perform a lot of these exercises that might even be a bigger topic. But I do agree with you. It's like interesting that it makes sense that you do one exercise and you might feel that in one way, and you train and do another exercise, you might feel that in a different way. So right. And so one might lead more towards, like, if we're building the muscle, one might lead more towards width and one might lead more towards depth.
I don't know.
But so much of the V taper thing also is, like, with so much bodybuilding, it's about, if somebody has a very little waist, they will look like they have bigger lats in proportion to their waist circumference. And that's where, but if somebody's a little bit thicker through their waist, you might have the same size lat, but it just might not look the same as if you had a really narrow waist.
And then I think that just like leans to people, defaulting on their good genetics for promoting a certain thing, and it's back to the same old problem we keep running into with the internet and exercise, and like that there's this weird marketing cycle of, there's not enough of this, don't do this exercise, but only do this exercise. And like, just like the weirdest thing. And
well, that's where, like, having even like a better understanding of like, but wait, what is it that I'm actually seeing? Because sometimes you can see like thickness in, like, say, glutes, for example. Well, what's really there? We're talking the muscle, but there also may be fat over top of the muscle. Like, you're seeing a lot of things. Getting a better, and that's great. Like, it doesn't matter how much fat or how much muscle, but just like, what am I visually seeing right now? The same way with like lats can be deceiving, because like if somebody has a very narrow waist, that might look, but once you start to like look at it and be like, what is it I'm actually looking at? I think it can be empowering, like for when they're like on Instagram influencers or something, trying to market a particular thing, trying to see through that, if there is something to see through.
So I think what's interesting about the internet and the majority of like the advice that it offers for back training, it would make you think that you would have to feel certain muscles in order for the change to happen. And because, and like, I've just seen so many different scenarios, like teaching somebody some sort of bent over row, and they're like, I feel this in my hamstrings. I'm like, okay, it is a hamstring exercise. Good. In a way.
Yes. So I'm glad you brought that up, because earlier when I was saying a lot of people tend to feel back exercises in their arms, it doesn't mean your back's not working.
Yeah.
You may be feeling bent over rows in your lower back, in your hamstrings, in your glutes, like, and provided you're doing things like kind of correctly, like you also could very well be working your back or are working your back too. It's just might not be speaking as loudly as something else.
Yeah. So I guess the internet's trying to train us to like buy into the sensation of all of it, and like, and that it's just like might not be part of your early on process. Like, it was not for me. Like, I felt the fatigue in my wrist and my hands and my arms, and I felt like even with a basic certification, I felt like I was doing things wrong, and then I avoided it. And I think a lot of people can kind of say, yeah, me too, and I think we can do better. That's the whole point of this.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's a really good point, especially, and I don't want to say this because it's not female or male, but I do think that women, generally speaking, have tended to train with less heavy weights.
Mm-hmm.
And when they have worked out generally in the past. I mean, certainly there are more women training with heavier weights now, but there's a lot of things, right? Like your wrists, for example, like it makes sense that there would be those body parts would have to get comfortable with that. And I think it can feel very scary and intimidating when you start to lift heavier weights, because those things very well may fatigue before your grip, your elbows. You may be feeling things that are going into different ranges and positions that they haven't been in with weights that you haven't used before.
Yeah. And then, fast forward 2 months later, our confidence is shot and we've got 5-pound dumbbells and we're just holding them over our head doing curtsy lunges.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And hey, I mean,
isn't so.
Yeah. And and then I don't know. And then that's, I don't know. I think that's the slope, that we're trying to, kind of veer you away from.
It might just take some time. It might take some time to build confidence. It might take some time for those other things to catch up to where you can really start to, when we were doing our glute episode a while back and we were talking about like some people would feel certain things in their quads, or like the whole purpose, the frog pumps. Remember our frog pump episode? Right. Different people feel things in different ways. I would try the frog pump and it just I didn't feel good to my body. It didn't feel like I was feeling my glutes the way that I can feel my glutes in other things. And to what we were saying, but also earlier, like it doesn't mean maybe my glutes weren't working. Maybe I'm just used to a different thing. And maybe if I did them enough, I would get to where I like really could feel it. But I think having patience with all of these things, like there's just not going to ever be one set right approach. It's also malleable and individual, I guess is really what I'm trying to say, is individual.
Yeah. Well, and like looking at training variables in isolation is not, it's like not that helpful, if you don't talk about the whole system of stimulating and recovering and, it's just not, So it's just not super useful. That's the way I'll put it. You can definitely talk about individual training variables and it's fun to do so. But if you just end the conversation there, it ends up being black and white, I guess.
It has to really be for a specific individual at a given time, like in the moment.
When you said, the reference to like women and being shy of just weights in general, I did think like, okay, 15 years ago would have been weird to see a female bench pressing in the gym. And I think it's a little bit normal now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as much as I'm not like a fan of CrossFit for my own reasons, I do think that it has given women more of a platform or an outlet, like a space to feel a community of support of other women lifting heavy weights. And I think that's it's become more mainstream.
Yeah. So,
but again, one of the things I don't, but I'm not going to go into CrossFit, but what you were talking about earlier, the internet and that kind of thing, and things that you see and things you even see in the gym, a lot of like the elephant in the room, I think is a really important thing for us to discuss.
Yeah, I almost forgot.
Well, the thing is with so many different, we certainly see it a lot in back training, but it comes up in any kind of training. Training of any could come up in a lot of different exercises for different body parts. The idea that you see people doing the same thing over and over And I'm going to say, I'm just because I don't know a better word at the moment, incorrectly. And I don't want to ever be like, no, that's wrong. That's right. Because there can be like good reasons for why you're doing something. There can be strategic, but a lot of times if you didn't know anything and you kept going to the gym over and over and you kept seeing people train back, you would think it was really normal to initiate a lot of back exercises with momentum.
The M word.
The M word. Which, again, if you're doing it on purpose and for a specific reason, okay, cool. But a lot of people are like, that's the way you perform that exercise. And so that's the way I'm going to perform that exercise.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets, where we could be more efficient with our exercise.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to, I don't like the whole idea of like the ego lift. If you've been used to training with a certain weight and somebody's like, I want you to deduct that weight by half and do it differently, that can be a real mind challenge.
What if I told you the biggest thing standing in the way of peak performance is potentially something as simple as changing how you breathe? We at Think Fit Be Fit rely on science for new ways to optimize performance. That's why we've partnered with NeuroPeak Pro and their new product, the Intel Belt. NeuroPeak has developed the next generation of wearable tech. This belt is a real-time training device designed to teach users how to breathe properly in order to strengthen their resilience to stress, recover quickly, and effectively execute the task in front of them. If you're ready to begin unleashing the true power of breath, download the free NeuroPeak Pro app to experience their precision breath training, or dive deeper into the science of breath training by visiting thinkfitbefitpodcast.com/NPP. Your best training is a breath away.
So if I put myself in the shoes of a gym staff, and I don't speak much English, I don't know what people are saying, I'm just doing my job, but I'm observing at the same time.
Right.
I would definitely think it was normal for people to use momentum, in a back exercise.
Yes.
Like a seesaw. I think I think that it would be very normal and comfortable for my observational eye, and that it would be a little abnormal to see, let's say, me at the gym with my sometimes electrical stim on, going at a slow, controlled pace, and enjoying that slow, controlled pace, right? Like that would be the abnormal sighting. So if you don't know what we're talking about yet, just in case, imagine the weight stack moving fast and the person also moving quite quickly at the same time, and like what's being produced within that cycle of effort and resistance, right? Most likely the person is using the speed to bypass maybe like weakness or control, or just get it done quickly to say that they hit a certain number and hit a certain number of repetitions. And, to Meredith and I, it looks sloppy. We'll just kind of say in our head, like, oh, maybe it's their drop set or just something to make it sugar-coated and walk on.
Yeah, I generally try to just not look, but also like it was cool though in just like looking through stuff on YouTube. I mean, I definitely see people demonstrate, even people that are talking intelligently about like the mechanics, and like when they show it in the video, it's like they're thrusting the weight, they're hoisting the weight, or using hip momentum, hip back, to try and like get ahead of the weight or something.
Yeah.
But there was somebody who was doing that on the way down concentrically, and then doing like a slow, controlled, negative eccentric motion. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, that is thought out for why they're doing it. And again, like you wouldn't necessarily do that as a beginner. Like you would do that for a specific reason, a specific goal or whatever. But yeah, it's that haphazardness of the first way that just seems, and then I just wonder, you know, you can't blame somebody if that's all they've really seen people doing in a gym and that's how they've learned.
Yeah. And also like the context of the name. Okay, let's like rowing. It's called rowing. And guess what rowing looks like?
That's true. You're right.
You know, so...
Right. If you thought you were like on a rowing machine, you might have the idea that it's similar to that thing.
Yeah,
I get that.
exactly.
That's a good point. Right.
And that's what I get upset about. Like, I just wish there were better names for exercises.
And so this is where it can be really, because we can put ourselves in different places in space. Like you were talking about the bent over row earlier, which I think of as being a very challenging, like if it's unsupported, like you're not using a bench to like support you're just doing a barbell row bent over. There's a lot of stuff, to your point earlier, like if you're feeling your hamstrings, that's you could see how somebody might be, or their glutes or lower back for sure. That's a really, I think, challenging and not for everyone exercise. Just because like there's more risk than there is benefit for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that's where knowing like what each exercise offers, like having a machine row, I think can be really beneficial because you do have like a support. You do have something that's good. But again, even on machine rows with a support, I see people pull away from it.
They totally bypass it. Yeah.
So knowing what it's there for and how to use it is, again, like another challenge. It's another part of the learning process.
Yeah. I think it would be a good service for a gym to have an intro session with people, not for their goals, not for their body fat measurement, but like a literal introduction to the machine.
I'm not sure. A lot of people, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how good people are at teaching that. I'm not sure how good, I don't know. I just feel like it's one of those things that's really hard to learn. If you've never experienced it, it can be a really challenging thing because it goes so much against what you want to do. It's like having to retrain. And I don't think enough people often want to back off the weight enough to where they like could then rebuild from a lighter weight. And I don't know, I could be really wrong. And I don't want to like misjudge and like say that I know people because everybody's different. And like,
my solution was very naive. Yeah.
No. I love that solution though. I love the idea that there's somebody there that is just like teaching people about technique.
I mean, how cool would it be if there was a machine nerd at every
But I have
to.
Do you remember like I remember my early days of training.
Okay.
And you have to be a floor trainer.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to go talk to people and like help them with things. And a lot of times people do not want help.
Yeah.
They're like, and I don't even know that they care that they're doing it wrong sometimes. No, that's not everybody. I was in New York City. Perhaps people are nicer elsewhere.
Yeah.
But but you have to, I'm sorry. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but
I think it's a good one because it's, you mentioned something really important, which was, what the body wants to do.
Right.
When they meet up with this resistance, like, hey, resistance.
And that happens in a lot of exercises.
I swiped left on you.
Training.
What's up?
Yes. We are inherently like designed to get away from challenge.
Yes.
You are doing your job in life if you have figured out how to have the path of like least resistance, except that that's the exact opposite thing that you want to do when you're in the gym.
Yes. So if you're on team, we want to make like 85 the new 30. Okay. Maybe not that. Maybe like 65 the new 30.
40, maybe.
I think that's already done. That's been done. Okay. So, we're talking about longevity. So challenging yourself with the control factor is what we're trying to like really like say, hey, embrace this if you want to have success with this. And that's it.
Because the cool thing is that you can then take that control and you can go back to doing it the other way, and you're probably going to be stronger. You might not want to go back to doing it the other way, but you can apply that. I think you have a better opportunity to actually stimulate the muscles that you might be trying to stimulate with less joint injury, possibly. Because you don't maybe need as much weight as you thought you did if you're doing it with control to get the same benefit.
And then, and potentially like a lot less risk, which makes your whole endeavor like.
If the goal is to get to 85 being 40 or 35. We don't want to get there with like broken bones, ideally.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
The shoulder replacements and hip replacements. I mean, if you need those things, that's fine. But like, we don't want to like encourage it any more than we.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely don't want to encourage that. No. I really think like, the more you avoid a joint replacement, the better. Right. Like it is.
I agree.
Because once you start, it's really hard to, anyways, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
Yeah. And it's just, the momentum thing really is the elephant in the room when it comes to like, you're looking up all these cool back exercises. I got into a really fun EMG rabbit hole, and I was just like fascinated.
Yeah.
And I learned about how you have to adjust like the amplitude for what joint you're looking at and what muscle you're looking at. And I just thought that was also interesting. But, the whole like conversation about like, hey, you should feel at this place and this and there. And if you think the only way you can get that is throwing on more weight, that's the problem. Like that is the elephant in the room, and that the momentum lifting is the norm. That's also a problem. And the classic example of that is, of course, the bicep curls where you're just throwing your weight onto your heels.
Yeah.
You got the weight forward and then you throw it up as your elbows bend. But then it's, the lat pull down, just pulling your ass up off the seat.
So what are some of what do you think about when you're doing some of these exercises so that you don't do that?
Yeah, I've got I've got one, I think it's probably a creative where people might not think of this one when they say, hey, do you have any upper body back training tips?
Okay.
And this suggestion is the most difficult, which is learning how to like pressure your rib cage. That requires figuring out if you're a chest breather.
Okay.
Figuring out if you're breathing too much. So
isn't that an interesting thing?
Yeah.
That we can do. Yeah. That comes up for sure.
So you could just call that, checking in with the rib cage, because that's essentially where all these muscles are hanging. That's where they're attaching and what they're moving, right? Like, so I think it'd be a really good idea to learn what it means to pressurize like the ribs, the abdominals, the breath. And I think then you can if you learn how to do that, I think you'll have some really successful back training with, and you embrace the control factor.
Okay. That's very cool.
Other thing? You go. I forgot my second one. It'll come to me.
My favorite one, and it just feels tried and true for me, is to imagine I'm pulling myself up out of the seat. So if I'm pulling down, I'm actually trying to do a pull up. For whatever reason, that helps me to initiate. So instead of thinking about moving back as I start to lift the weight or start to move the weight down, I'm thinking about pulling up, and it allows me to maintain the postural position that I like.
Yeah.
And same thing, engaging. Like just what? Yeah.
It's very engaging mentally. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same thing I think about when I'm rowing. So if I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about pulling myself towards the weight as opposed to leaning back to pull the weight towards me. And whether it's a dumbbell row or a barbell row or a cable row, that's always kind of what I'm thinking is keeping my torso really still, or moving toward, even though I'm not actually moving towards the barbell, like pulling myself to the barbell, not the barbell to me.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I now at this point, I do that naturally. And it just makes me think like, whoa, like that's some real gem. That's a real gem that I haven't even thought about like sharing with someone else. Cause I do it naturally at this point.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I think also the thing too is like what ends up happening, at least when I'm working with some clients, is if the thought is to pull it down, it's just, it's like getting the bar to my chest. Like the thought is like, I just need to get this bar to my chest. Which is not really where your chest is arbitrary. The relationship to, because it's, if we've stopped using the stuff that we're trying to use really, and it just becomes like other stuff gets in the way, like elbows slide back and you just becomes about get it down however you can. So like that will often take it out to just, that if the momentum is thinking down, let's change it so that now we're thinking up. I don't know. But I think that's the thing too, is playing around with different cues is really important to find different things for different people. Because some people might respond to that and other people are like, what? You want me to pull up? Because then the other thing that can happen, right, is that like people could leave their shoulders up as they pull down. So it's everybody's, I know it's a cool movie.
We're not putting that on the video highlight.
Don't put that one on. Back training with Meredith Mack. No. Sorry.
Oh, that was funny.
I can't help it sometimes.
Oh man. Sorry you guys didn't see that. Okay. So man, yeah, exactly. They'll just end up just holding their shoulders up, but they're keeping their torso still.
There you go. And maybe for some people that is like a progression, right? Like that's another exploration of what, because that's the thing. I think we think like back, we're thinking like, oh, it's one thing, but how much stuff is actually happening between all these joints, all the spinal joints, all the scapular stuff and glenohumeral stuff and elbow stuff. I mean, we didn't even get into like pronation, supination, neutral, grip,
I know,
wide, narrow. Like it becomes, there's a lot of stuff happening in these exercises. There's a lot to hold still. There's a lot to, think about what's moving, what's staying still.
Yeah. So I think my second tip is on that staying still piece, which is if there's a seatbelt, use it. People, like some of my clients, I've said that to them. I'm like, look, if there is like a constraint, like use it. I was like, I wonder,
isn't there like MedX equipment is great at really like restraining people and like certain, if you literally could not move and all you could do was move your arms or whatever, like, So if there's like a leg pad that you can put down, that can be really helpful for extra support. Or bracing.
So I'd say explore using that stuff. It's so that's a little bit more broader than just use the seatbelt, but like, if there's constraining pieces to the equipment,
like on a pullover, there's often like a seatbelt to buckle into,
and the front chest pad. If we're talking about some rowing machines, try to control like the urge
stay connected to the
come
pad.
off of there. Stay connected there.
Or like at what point in the range do I want to start pulling away from it? And trying to play around with.
And that's if I had a third one, it's like asking yourself that question, like, what am I doing in these transition points? Like when the body wants to follow the weight, or once the weight's winning the tug of war, or, what does the weight want your body to do? And, asking yourself that question. And then the answer is going to be like, that's the part you can control to get more output, to get that safe, optimal, awesome peach bit exercise.
Well, there's another thing that reminded me of is like, if you're wondering if you're using momentum, try stopping the weight, like at multiple points along the path. Like, can I bring it here and hold it? Can I bring it here and hold it? Can I bring it here and hold it? Like, because then you can't really ever build up enough movement somewhere else to,
That's
not that I would do that with every rep all the time, but just like fun things to play around with.
Yeah, that's what Ami does for sure. That's one of her fun things.
Ways to torture you.
Yeah. Well, she's one of my resistance mentors, like for sure. Yeah. And then what else popped up into my head when we were talking is like, I have this like marvelous machine, this pulley machine, the Core Restore training system. And it's as close to isolation as you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and even then, when we attach the pulleys right to the chest to do some spinal extension, very like it's so cool when you can feel the extensors working, but you also can't ignore the other muscles and the activities going on. Because you can feel, because it's so light, you can feel the blood pumping. You know what I mean? You feel like the more blood flow in the air, even just in the muscles of your standing, of your posture, as you're doing the extension. And so it's just, when you're scrolling, on Instagram and this guy's like, hey, you can isolate your whatever lat, this and that, how is that possible when you're pulling with your arm and your shoulder? So that's the next podcast, right? Like the grips, the brachialis, teres major, like they have a huge role in these pull downs. Yeah. So I think it's a good time to skirt on over to our 90s icon.
Ooh, I've been waiting for it. She's going to surprise me with it. I have no idea what she's about to say.
Oh my God. Cindy Crawford.
I like Cindy Crawford.
Okay. Well, she has a 3-part workout video.
Really?
From 1992.
Okay.
And holy crap, does Kaya Gerber look exactly like her? So that's her daughter, who's also a supermodel.
Okay. Sorry.
You might not even, I love celebrity kid news. Like that is one of my teas. Like that is just one of my guilty pleasures is knowing what the celebrity kids are up to. Okay. So Kaya Gerber.
Fun. Live vicariously.
Kaya Gerber is Cindy Crawford's daughter.
Okay.
And if you saw, and how the 90s are just like so hot and yummy right now.
Really. I saw that there's going to be a 90s boy band bar opening up in New York City. I was like, okay, I guess the 90s really are coming back. All right.
Oh my God.
Sorry, continue.
That's hilarious. Yeah, man, if they have like a fitness group X class.
Right.
So I got so excited about this fitness video. I have so many things to say.
What was it called?
It's just Cindy Crawford Shape Your Body Workout 1992.
Okay.
And it's 3 workouts.
Okay.
So I got so excited. I was like, oh my God, like I want an online event where we can all watch this together. Because it is so...
Did you watch it?
A lot of it, yeah.
Okay.
The 3 workouts... Yeah.
Okay.
The 3 workouts add up to 140 minutes.
Okay.
And so at the beginning, she's got a cute message, which I'm going to play. Oh. Come on in. And it's cute. Don't get me wrong. But then she's like, and then I don't know, it just changes.
Well, I got to hear it.
Everyone thinks that models have perfect bodies, and everyone thinks that I have a perfect body because I shoot swimsuits and lingerie, and that's definitely not true. We always say, oh, I hate this about myself, and I don't like that, and we never focus on the things about ourselves that we do like. We're so hard on ourselves. It's really satisfying for me to learn like which exercises work, which muscles, and to really, watch it as you do it. And when you do the pushback, you know that you're working the triceps. Where I was sore was where I wanted to be sore. Everyone, all girls always worry about their rear end and their legs and their stomach. I feel like not a weak little female. I feel like I'm macho. I want you to feel empowered and
That's so
energized
cool.
and a little like you really worked your butt off.
First time you do something just for you.
And it
you are
does
so
take
happy.
discipline because it's not easy.
It's so true.
I met Reggie.
Okay.
That's really cool.
So she says all
Okay.
the right things.
Okay. Oh no.
I was with you.
Man.
I was with you
out there.
I was so with you there because I was like,
Okay.
oh, like
Yeah,
I
body
love
positive, feel the right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carrie Bradshaw would definitely do this workout. 100%.
Okay.
So every scene is in like the meatpacking district.
Interesting.
So anyways, there's like 10 minutes of just like calisthenic leg swinging, like with the chair. And then she's like, 15 minutes of lunging. There we go. Do you think Carrie Bradshaw would do these?
I think Carrie Bradshaw does Pilates, but
she's got the New York scene there.
she
so
definitely
I feel
has
like,
the New York scene. She definitely has the Sex and the City background for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So it's just like that for a while. And then lots of leg kicking.
I don't want to do that workout, but
lots of calisthenics.
Enthusiasm in the beginning.
Even further on, you'll see it's like, it's just like the same old aerobic dance type of thing.
Yeah.
But, and also there's no cues.
Oh.
So anyways, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Aesthetically. And,
I mean, it's beautiful. She's beautiful. The background's beautiful. What's not to like?
But yeah, she said all the right things. Her trainers, there's some questionable like touching going on there. But I guess 1992, I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to look at it with 1992 eyes.
Yeah, well, you'd also have to look at it through like the eyes of like this guy looks like he taught ballet kind of thing. Like he's like holding up her leg. Doing the stretches and that's the look that it has. So I was like, oh man, she did say all the nice things though, that I did like to hear.
Well, it's a conversation for like a different podcast, but I do, especially, what we were talking about earlier, it's become a lot more mainstream for women to lift heavier weights now, but in the 90s, I'm sure it was still very much like aerobic style workouts for women, like dumbbells, if dumbbells at all. And so selling, if you're trying to market something, especially like things that models do, or, it would be more in line with that sort of thing, but
yeah,
it's fun.
So Cindy Crawford, if you'd like to come on and talk to us.
Thank you for sending it to me.
About your updated methods, I'd love to hear.
That would be interesting. I'd love to know what she does now.
Yeah. So somebody let us know.
Yeah.
I've cringed my way through the internet for this episode. Too much.
Too much. You need a break.
Yeah. That's why it's a monthly podcast.
Yeah. There's a lot to take in.
Yeah. It's a lot for us to take in. Yeah. Oh, internet. That. Yeah. So I thought that was a really good episode. I hope you guys
enjoyed it. I always feel like we have like a little bit of a therapy session here too. Yeah. So gym therapy.
Yeah. Hashtag not real therapy though.
Not real therapy. No. It's not real therapy. It's just really like for Jen and me to work through some of our gym issues.
Yeah. But all in the effort to like really just enlighten your curiosity to explore the factors of strength training, the varying your variables basically, and cues. Not like Cindy Crawford, who didn't use a single cue.
Well, but she's really not the trainer either. It would have been interesting if they had like trained her to do that. I wonder, if that was
you can see
intentional or
I don't know, but she was very excited. Like when they would start like the movement, she'd be like, "You do it like this," and then her trainer would say something like, I couldn't even hear him. And then, and she's like, okay, 20. And she keeps kicking her leg.
Oh,
So, and then I was like, how was she so sore? And I was like, man, she was just like 50 leg kicks. That's amazing. So, a lot of questions, Cindy Crawford, a lot of questions.
I need you to go back to 1992. That was 30 years ago. Crazy.
Oh man.
Holy cow.
Well, thank God 60 is the new 35.
Right? There we go.
All right. I love you.
I love you.
Thank you, Peach Pit.
Thank you, Peach Pit.
Thank you so much for listening and being a part of the Think Fit, Be Fit podcast network. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and family. If you're interested in further resources, check out the show notes or visit our website, thinkfitbefitpodcast.com.